I was sitting at my desk reviewing client fraud cases when my wife texted, "I want a divorce. I've found someone else." But it wasn't the heartbreak that stunned me. It was the $800,000, 0 cents she'd tried to steal right after. What she didn't know, I built the very system that would catch her in the act. If you've ever uncovered a betrayal through your own careful planning or instincts, share your story below. Sometimes the systems we build to protect others end up saving ourselves. My name is Nathan Bell. I'm 45 years old, and this is the story of how my own fraud detection system exposed the person I trusted most. It was a Wednesday morning in Richmond, Virginia. Nathan Bell, 45, sat at his desk in the Financial Systems Department at Orbis Union, double-checking client-side fraud detection algorithms. The office was quiet, the usual hum of muted conversations and keyboard clicks serving as background noise. He was sipping lukewarm coffee when his phone buzzed on the desk beside him. The message preview stopped him cold. "I want a divorce. I found someone who actually makes me happy." It was from Dana, his wife, the woman he'd been married to for 22 years. She was supposed to be at a marketing conference in Dallas, a routine 3-day trip. She'd left 2 days ago with a suitcase and a familiar kiss on the cheek. That text changed everything. Before he could fully process it, another message came through. "I've transferred the retirement funds to my private account. You can keep the house." No prelude, no conversation, no warning, just a declaration of emotional and financial abandonment, dropped like a business memo. Nathan didn't reply immediately. He didn't stand up, didn't curse, didn't call her. Instead, he minimized the client's dashboard on his monitor and opened a different one, his own. It was a system he'd quietly developed after a client's company lost over $2 million in a failed audit. The experience had left a mark. Since then, he'd built a personal consolidated monitoring platform, integrating every account he and Dana shared. Retirement savings, investment portfolios, emergency reserves, real estate equity, and even their basic checking account were all funneled into one tightly controlled, internally validated dashboard. He hadn't done it out of paranoia. It was simply who he was. Meticulous, precise, careful. As he clicked into the system, he didn't need to search. Alerts were already waiting. Unauthorized transactions detected. Multiple transfers flagged. Activity inconsistent with historical patterns. The interface wasn't designed to feel emotional, but the sheer volume of warnings felt like a gut punch. One screen showed the attempted movement of $820,000, 0 cents in retirement funds. Another flagged a login from an unfamiliar IP address in Phoenix, Arizona, not Dallas. Dana had used her credentials to initiate the transfers, but the system's multi-layer verification protocols had already triggered. What she didn't understand, what she'd never bothered to learn, was that those accounts were protected by federal anti-fraud regulations, and the system Nathan built automatically alerted the receiving institutions when a transfer exceeded a predetermined risk threshold. By the time she sent that second text, the funds were already under review. Frozen. Locked pending investigation. Useless to her. Nathan stared at the dashboard as new alerts populated the screen in real time. Transfer attempts. Denied. Withdrawal attempts. Blocked. Authorization request? Rejected. He picked up his phone, typed 7 words, and sent them without hesitation. "I hope you're happy." Then he set it down and returned to work. There were still client systems to audit, still anomalies to track, still other people's futures to protect. Dana had gambled on timing, on stealth. She thought she could disappear with their life savings in the middle of a work week. She thought he wouldn't notice until it was too late. What she didn't understand, what she had underestimated, was that the very system Nathan used to protect others had now protected him. No confrontation, no drama, just the cold precision of logic, automation, and quiet consequence. By noon, his phone buzzed again, not from Dana, but from the financial institution that had received her transfer attempts. Account review initiated. Deposits frozen pending federal compliance investigation. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just opened a new case file, logged the morning's events, and moved on. Nathan met Dana when they were 16 years old, back in Petersburg, Virginia. He was the quiet kid who kept stats for the baseball team and edited spreadsheets for fun. She was the homecoming court favorite, always the first to raise her hand in class discussions and the last one off the dance floor. Their worlds weren't supposed to overlap, but they did, when Dana's car broke down after a fundraiser and Nathan offered her a ride home. One conversation turned into more. Their personalities couldn't have been more different, but somehow it worked. Where Nathan brought structure, Dana brought spark. They got married at 23, fresh out of college. Nathan landed a job as a junior financial analyst, while Dana started working at a boutique marketing agency. He handled the numbers, she handled people. Their life together was built like a balanced ledger, each bringing what the other lacked. Nathan tracked every expense, every investment, every tax advantage. Dana worked the room at every company function, her charm earning them client referrals and partnership opportunities. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. As her career blossomed, Dana started traveling more. Austin, San Diego, Chicago. Nathan stayed rooted, working, managing their home, tracking their finances with the precision of a forensic auditor. It became a rhythm. She packed, he double-checked the mortgage payment and updated their budget sheet. But over time, little things began to shift. About 6 months ago, Dana stopped asking about their retirement projections. For years, she'd check in quarterly, even jokingly asking what kind of beaches they could afford in 20 years. But that stopped. When Nathan would bring it up, she'd wave him off. "You've got it handled," she'd say, brushing past the topic like it was beneath her interest now. 3 months ago, Nathan noticed a new line item on their credit report. Dana had opened a card without discussing it. When he asked, she gave a quick explanation. Something about separating business expenses for tax season. It didn't sit right, but he didn't push. After all, they'd never had a serious issue with money. Then came the distancing. She declined invitations from his sister, skipped Sunday dinners, and started staying longer on business trips. When Nathan questioned the changes, she blamed stress. "This client has me doing triple the work," she'd say. "I'm just burned out." He believed her. Wanted to believe her. At Thanksgiving, his sister leaned over during dessert and whispered, "She seems off, cold even. Is everything okay between you two?" Nathan had nodded, unsure. "Just work pressure," he said aloud. "She's been swamped." But now, in hindsight, those were signs, not of stress, but of strategy. 2 nights before her trip to Dallas, they had dinner at home. Dana made her usual chicken piccata, poured herself a glass of wine, and brought up retirement as if it were small talk. "How much do we have saved, all in?" she asked, spearing a piece of asparagus. Nathan didn't hesitate. "Between the 401 cakes, IRAs, and brokerage, around 800,000. "Wow," she said, her smile casual. "That's good to know." He didn't think anything of it. They'd always been transparent about finances, but now that moment echoed differently in his mind. She hadn't been curious. She'd been calculating. The exit plan had already begun. He could see it all clearly now. Every just curious question, every forgotten check-in, every missed call. They weren't signs of emotional drift. They were Dana detaching herself, quietly gathering information, waiting for the right moment. He'd thought their marriage was built on complementary strengths, but while he'd been fortifying their future, Dana had been plotting her departure. Friday morning arrived with a strange calm. Nathan had slept only a few hours but felt unusually clear-headed. At precisely 11:30 a.m., his phone rang. The caller ID flashed Dana. He hesitated, then answered. "Nathan, my card's not working," she said sharply, her voice taut with restrained panic. "I tried using it at the hotel front desk, and it declined. Twice." "What's your balance?" Nathan asked evenly. "It says 0. I transferred the funds yesterday." "What did you do?" "Nothing," Nathan said truthfully. "The system flagged the transfers. Federal fraud detection protocols require investigation and joint authorization for large retirement fund withdrawals. Your actions triggered an automatic freeze." There was a pause on the line, long enough that Nathan wondered if she'd hung up. Then came the sharp inhale he recognized from past conference calls, Dana trying to reframe a collapsing situation. "How long?" she demanded. 5 to 7 business days, maybe longer if they find discrepancies. She ended the call without another word. By evening, the missed calls had begun, 17 in total. Dana used her cell, a hotel landline, and even texted from an unknown number. The messages ranged from pleading to furious. "This isn't fair. You're sabotaging me. We need to talk." Nathan didn't answer. Instead, he poured himself a cup of coffee and pulled up the logs. His system had logged every move Dana made in the last 72 hours, attempts to access other retirement accounts, transfer funds to a brokerage in her maiden name, and open 3 new credit cards using their joint home address. All 3 applications were denied due to the pending fraud review. The most damning log came from the home security system Dana believed was just for show. His dashboard showed she hadn't left for Dallas at all. The front door camera never recorded her departure with luggage. Her phone GPS had pinged in Phoenix, nearly 1,200 miles from the conference location. That evening, Nathan received a call from Valerie Marketing Group, Dana's employer. "Mr. Bell, this is Alan Murphy, Dana's division lead," the voice said cautiously. "I hate to intrude, but was Dana really attending the Dallas event this week?" Nathan was silent for a moment. "Why do you ask?" "She hasn't checked in with the conference staff, and HR has no record of her registration. We also found some discrepancies in her recent travel expense reports." Nathan's gut tightened. Not only had Dana betrayed him personally, she was now suspected of defrauding her own company. "I can't speak to her schedule," he said finally, "but I'd suggest reaching out to her directly." Alan thanked him and hung up. Nathan sat in his office staring at the screen. This wasn't just a marital collapse. It was a deeper deception, one that blended personal greed with professional misconduct. That Sunday night, Dana called the house. Nathan let it go to voicemail. Her message was frantic. "I'm stuck here. Please talk to the bank. Tell them it was authorized. I didn't mean for it to get complicated." She still didn't get it. This wasn't about spite. It was about consequences. The next morning, Nathan met with William Brooks, a seasoned family law attorney who had once worked in financial regulation. William reviewed the account freezes, the monitoring logs, and Dana's attempted credit applications. "You have every right to file immediately," William said. "This is clear financial misconduct, and we'll want to document everything, especially the unauthorized attempts and misrepresentations." Nathan nodded. He'd spent his life creating systems to protect others from fraud. Now those same systems were protecting him. By noon, the divorce papers were filed. No alimony, no asset division beyond what was already frozen, just a clean, immediate legal break. The betrayal was personal, but Nathan's response was systematic. Dana didn't stay quiet for long. A week after the divorce papers were filed, Nathan received a letter from her newly retained attorney, Patricia Martinez. He remembered her vaguely from local community events. Always sharply dressed, always circling legal loopholes like a shark. The letter accused Nathan of weaponizing his financial expertise to intentionally sabotage marital assets. Patricia had filed an emergency motion requesting that the frozen retirement funds be released, citing emotional distress and deliberate financial entrapment. Nathan handed the letter to his attorney, William Brooks, without a word. William read through it, then gave a dry laugh. "They're accusing your automated fraud monitoring system of having feelings." They prepared a comprehensive response, audit logs, time-stamped fraud alerts, and federal compliance flags that had been automatically triggered by Dana's unauthorized withdrawals. The system didn't require Nathan's hand. It operated independently, by design. It was the same system used to protect Orbis Union's clients from multi-million-dollar theft. The judge reviewed both sides during a closed hearing. Patricia argued for urgency, financial access, fairness. William presented timelines, compliance protocols, and statements from 2 banks confirming the fraud holds were automatic. After 15 minutes of review, the judge ruled in Nathan's favor. The funds would remain frozen pending the outcome of the financial investigation. Dana's attempt to wrest control had failed. But the damage wasn't just personal. 3 days later, Orbis Union's internal compliance team reached out to Nathan. One of their auditors had flagged activity that bore an eerie similarity to what had occurred in his personal accounts, transfers from corporate marketing budgets into external personal accounts, using network credentials tied to Dana's department. "Mr. Bell," the lead auditor began during a confidential Zoom meeting, "we believe your wife may have used her position at Valerie Marketing Group to facilitate unauthorized transfers between corporate and personal accounts. We're initiating a full forensic audit. Would you be willing to help us validate certain system patterns?" Nathan agreed immediately. As he pulled up archived logs and protocols from his monitoring dashboard, another alert appeared. This one from his real estate tracking app. It was a notification about his own property. A new listing had just been registered for his home at 104 Wrenwood Circle. List price, $300,000, 0 cents. That was the exact amount he and Dana had paid 5 years earlier. The market value now, over $500,000, 0 cents. A name on the listing caught his attention. Thomas Wade, a buyer's representative. Nathan remembered Thomas as Dana's old real estate associate from years past. He called the listing agent, introduced himself as the owner of the property, and asked how it had been authorized for sale. Silence. Within hours, Nathan had sent a cease and desist notice through William and flagged the listing to the Virginia Real Estate Board. The listing was pulled. 2 days later, Detective Sarah Flynn from the Richmond Financial Crimes Unit contacted Nathan for a formal interview. She had been looped in by both the bank and real estate board. She asked simple, direct questions. What he knew, when he knew it, what systems he'd used to track it. Then she confirmed what Nathan had begun to suspect. Dana's attempted real estate flip wasn't an isolated incident. Thomas Wade had listed 6 other properties in the last 8 months, most of them belonging to mid-level marketing executives or tech employees at risk of downsizing. All had been undervalued and pre-approved for below-market offers through shell buyers, then flipped for massive profit. Dana's attempt on Nathan's house was the cleanest evidence. Every detail, pricing, timing, buyer connection, was traceable. And Nathan's systems had caught it all. A quiet resistance had turned into something much bigger. Dana's world was collapsing faster than she could outrun it. Every financial move she made was blocked, flagged, or outright denied. Her accounts remained frozen, her emergency court motion for access had failed, and every attempt to use joint credit cards was rejected. The automated fraud alerts that had once felt like a quiet insurance policy were now a full-blown security net tightening around her. Meanwhile, the investigation had exploded into something far larger than a marital dispute. A federal compliance officer from Eastern Financial Enforcement arrived at Nathan's office in Richmond with a request that sounded more like a summons. They needed his expertise. His fraud detection system had detected a level of financial coordination so precise that it outpaced their internal flags. The agent, Gregory Harris, handed Nathan a file thick with flagged transactions. Multiple routing paths, ghost accounts, falsified vendor payments, all traced back to Thomas Wade and Dana. They were moving corporate marketing funds into real estate accounts, Gregory explained. The aim wasn't just to steal. It was to launder the money and use undervalued properties to convert it cleanly. Dana wasn't just running from her marriage. She was at the center of a sophisticated corporate fraud ring. Nathan agreed to assist. He began pulling detailed audit logs, cross-referencing transaction patterns, and validating timestamps. Every time Dana or Thomas tried to manipulate a financial blind spot, Nathan's system had caught it. The evidence was so overwhelming that prosecutors fast-tracked subpoenas. Back in his home office, Nathan ignored the flood of texts from Dana. Where there had once been sharp, angry messages demanding explanations or favors, now came silence broken by desperation. "They're saying it's federal charges," she finally wrote. "Conspiracy, wire fraud. They think I'm the ringleader." Nathan didn't respond. He had nothing to offer her anymore. Instead, he met with his attorney, William Brooks, to ensure every piece of evidence was documented properly. Every time Dana had tried to open a new credit line under their joint address, he had it logged. Every expense report she'd submitted while claiming to be at conferences, now revealed as personal trips, was cross-checked with hotel receipts and GPS data. By now, Dana's employer had launched a full internal audit. Several more employees were under scrutiny, and multiple department heads were being reviewed for financial irregularities. Nathan had no interest in revenge, but he had every interest in truth. And the truth was, Dana hadn't just tried to escape their marriage. She had tried to reroute their future, destroy the financial foundation he'd built for 2 decades, and turn her own husband's skill into a liability. The investigators brought forward audio calls between Dana and Thomas discussing account timing, liquidity gaps, and asset flip windows. In one message, Dana's voice was cold and calculated. "Nathan's too careful. He'll never look at my corporate accounts." That single line sealed her fate. Dana tried to negotiate a plea deal, hoping to reduce her sentence. Her legal team reached out to Nathan with a request for a character statement. He declined. Instead, he submitted a letter Dana had handwritten and mailed from the county jail. It was brief. "I believed him over you. I thought you'd never notice. I'm sorry." Nathan added the letter to his case file. Not out of bitterness, not even out of anger, just evidence, another piece in a chain of decisions that began with betrayal and ended with a prison cell. He had no interest in conversations about forgiveness. He had systems, and the systems never lied. Dana's indictment came swiftly. The federal case named her, Thomas Wade, and 5 others as co-conspirators in a coordinated embezzlement and real estate laundering scheme that had siphoned more than $2 million from corporate accounts over a span of nearly 2 years. The charges were serious. Multiple counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, financial misrepresentation. The indictment didn't just outline her betrayal of Nathan. It laid bare an intricate web of deceit she had helped weave within her company, Valerie Marketing Group. The bail hearing was brief and decisive. Dana was considered a flight risk due to her attempts to transfer large sums, open new lines of credit, and manipulate property sales across state lines. Her motion for release was denied. She would remain incarcerated pending trial, her world reduced to visitation slots, scheduled calls, and a narrowing list of legal options. For Nathan, closure came not with courtroom drama, but with paperwork. His divorce finalized with none of the usual back and forth. Dana's guilty plea had rendered alimony requests moot. The judge awarded Nathan full ownership of the house, 100% of all untouched retirement and investment accounts, and the $3,000 0 cents remaining in their joint checking. She walked away with nothing but legal debt and a record. Nathan sold the house for $500,000, 0 cents, well above its purchase price, and relocated to Norfolk. He didn't want square footage or an extra bedroom. He wanted peace. The new house was a modest single story with a small garden, the kind of place built not for show but for living. No reminders of betrayal, no echoes of whispered lies or feigned business trips. Just a clean start. With his name now known among compliance professionals and federal investigators, Nathan was offered a consulting opportunity with Eastern Financial Compliance. He declined full-time work but accepted a part-time teaching position at Old Dominion University, where he developed a course on fraud detection and financial ethics. Each week, he stood before classrooms filled with accounting majors and cybersecurity students, explaining how algorithms don't get emotional, how patterns tell stories, people try to hide. He showed them redacted versions of the logs his system had captured, and anonymized but accurate. Trust is important, he'd say, but systems don't rely on trust, they rely on proof. The systems he'd built in the privacy of his home were now being modeled across other companies, adopted by institutions looking to close their own loopholes before someone like Dana found them. The sentencing came 6 months later. Dana received 18 years in federal prison. Thomas Wade got 9, thanks to his cooperation and full confession. The other defendants received terms ranging from 4 to 15 years. It was the largest corporate fraud conviction in the state that year. Nathan didn't attend sentencing. He didn't need to hear the gavel drop. He already knew the outcome because his systems had made it inevitable. The truth had been exposed not through emotion or confrontation, but through data, structure, and quiet diligence. He sat on his Norfolk porch the evening after the sentencing, drinking coffee as the sun dipped low over the fence line. He didn't feel triumph or even relief. What he felt was steadiness. His systems hadn't just protected assets. They had revealed character. They had spoken when people lied. And in the end, they had delivered justice, not out of vengeance, but out of function. That, he thought, was enough. Nathan's mornings are simple now. He wakes early, brews a fresh cup of coffee, and opens his laptop. Not to check personal accounts for anomalies, but to run a batch of automated market checks for his students' mock portfolios. The peace of that routine is something he never appreciated before. It's not built on trust, not even on hope. It's built on systems. Systems he designed to keep chaos at bay. And now, more than ever, those systems hold. The betrayal no longer haunts him. It sits where it belongs, in the past, archived in folders and court documents, boxed in legal files, marked and indexed. Dana's name shows up from time to time in articles or university case studies. But to Nathan, she's no longer a presence, just part of the story he lived through, learned from, and ultimately outlasted. Twice a week, he teaches at Old Dominion. His students don't ask about his personal life, and he doesn't offer it, but they listen closely when he walks them through case studies, highlighting how fraud isn't about suspicion, it's about identifying behavioral anomalies, about recognizing deviation, not distrust. He tells them systems aren't meant to feel, they're meant to catch what emotions often overlook. Every so often, on his way to the grocery store or while running errands, Nathan drives past Valerie Marketing's new headquarters. It's sleek, modern, larger than before. But he doesn't feel bitterness when he sees it, just quiet acknowledgement. That building stands because people trusted the wrong systems, but thanks to his, at least some of that damage was contained. Dana writes to him. Letters arrive every few months from the federal prison in West Virginia. She never asks for anything outright, just reflections, regret, nostalgia. She writes about moments from their past, camping trips, quiet dinners, the years before deceit took hold. Nathan reads the first few lines, then files them away without response. Not out of cruelty, but because he's made peace. His silence isn't punishment, it's a boundary, reinforced not by anger, but by clarity. He's learned that the systems we build, emotional, professional, financial, are only as strong as our belief in them. He built his with integrity. Dana, on the other hand, underestimated them. She saw the system, but not the man behind it. She mistook calm for weakness, routines for rigidity, and boundaries for blindness. That mistake cost her everything. Nathan doesn't dwell on it. He keeps moving forward, living a life anchored not in revenge but in discipline, trusting the processes he's built, teaching others to do the same. And in the quiet of his Norfolk home, as the sun sets behind the porch railing, he sometimes reflects on a simple truth. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with sirens or verdicts. It doesn't scream, cry, or plead. Sometimes it's just a quiet line of code catching a lie at 3 in the morning, a silent alert, a blinking notification, a record that cannot be rewritten. When truth becomes math, betrayal never stood a chance.